Neville Howard has been nice enough to give us some more of his time. I don't know how long since we chatted. Seems like about 6-8 months. What do you think,
It feels
Nev?
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's about 8 months ago. It was pre-Christmas, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think I was in a fleece when we chatted last, and then summer
and we're
came
back in
around,
it.
and now I'm in a fleece again.
Yeah, we've gone through 2 cycles of COVID variants, and we're back to almost normal again. So the time's passed.
It is almost normal for most people.
Yes. Well, thanks for having me back.
No
Obviously,
worries.
I didn't do too bad.
Nev is a comic book impresario. He is the guy behind. Now this is going to come up. Let's share this. Oh, I want to share this. Share. There's that'll be good for the video. Grow Hunters Australia. Yeah, so that's the page that you own and run. It's a fun time over there.
Turned 4 years old last Thursday. So survived 4 years. I've only had 1 or 2 Facebook warnings for the page, but that's a good thing. I think the community is amazing, people are amazing, and it's just growing steadily. I never wanted it to be a 10,000 strong page. I just wanted it to be a page of active members where people can hang out and be positive and engaging and appreciate each other's collections. So I feel we're achieving that, and I'm just one of the 1,500 on there most days of the week, right? The page runs itself.
Absolutely.
So
and
it's really
if we
good.
just scan through here, we can see Martin is showing off his latest purchase or, just something he likes. There's something from Michael Punisher, which is fantastic. Jeff showing off his Thor there.
Yeah, those are amazing, man. Look at that Sinkovich cover at the end. Oh, it's so good.
So good. So that's a fun page to get over to. And the other thing I wanted to profile, of course. Yeah, no, say stuff.
No, I just want to say we're mostly a bad influence on each other, because you see the beautiful books and you get inspired and you're like, oh, I got to add that to my list. So you just end up having to buy more and sell more to buy more, which is always a good habit to have, so you don't spend real money. When you spend comic money, it's good. Just keep it separate.
Just comic, buddy.
Or at least that's what you tell the tax man.
Yeah, sure. I don't know too many people that have been pinged for
hobby.
For something like that. But we'll move away from that, and probably maybe we should move towards this, which is your, I want to say, crazy probably isn't a very, now what do I got to do here? I want to change that. I want to get over there. That's what I want to get. Your Instagram, Neville. Where you profile all your latest purchases. You want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, look, for me, it's, I think my Instagram is very, very different to my Facebook page. My Facebook page, you'll just see my common day-to-day life covered with dogs, looking forward to beers, that type of stuff. Whereas I thought for Instagram, if people add me on both, they won't see the same thing twice. I'm kind of documenting my journey around collecting, calling out what I like collecting, things I'm looking forward to, things I've achieved, things, the nostalgia. I remember previously we spoke about what's nostalgic about it, what I'm still collecting from 30 years ago. And front and center, you see those little He-Man action figures and the toys and stuff, right? So I'm still really, really all over that type of stuff. And I'm just using that Instagram page to as a platform to journey that and to journal that. But it's also really good to, excuse me, the algorithms around Instagram seems to find the audience really well. So I find international people with a similar interest quite easily on Instagram, and we network well, whether it's via Messenger or we end up adding each other on Facebook, but supporting each other to find the comics and the grails that you're after, especially the foreign stuff like the one you have in front of you, right? The great Neil Adams cover, and a few collectors in Brazil would want it, a few collectors in America would want it, so they send me messages like, hey, can you find me one, and all that type of stuff. They tend to do it all via messages. Usually they just say, oh, a really good book or really nice image or something like that, and then you get the message on the side saying, hey man, do you think you can get another one, things like that. So it's a really good networking tool as much as everything else. Although my intention there was really just to showcase a bit of a show and tell of how I achieve a few things around my collection as I stay focused on the likes of the foreign collecting, the things that you're showing off now, the Brazilian, or I think that's the Mexican Green Lantern with a Batman header on it and things like that. It is really good because you find these oddities and it inspires you to find more of them.
Yes, I guess they've just thought people like Batman and Green Lantern. Let's mash them together on a cover and see what happens.
Yeah, I think in this case they'd be like, oh, yeah, Batman's a very, very well-known name or brand, so let's put the header on there to appeal to readers, and when they buy it, they realize it's a Green Lantern comic, so that we introduce them to Green Lantern by proxy, and then maybe they'll buy Green Lantern later on as well. So it's a smart concept, I guess. But you do find these oddities. I found a German digest over the weekend where it was a reprint of Avengers 11 with Kang, but they used the Spider-Man cover with Kingpin, and they actually replaced Kingpin's head with Kang's head. It's so many copyright issues and so many, but you know what? They got away with it back in the 60s and 70s, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, so much.
And there you see the Newtons, right? The ones that's at the top of the page at the moment. They're massive across the globe at the moment. The entire US is just chomping at the bits to find those Newton comics. And I actually brought some for show and tell, so I'll go through them with you.
Yeah, sure.
Just show you what they're about.
Tell us a little bit about this one, because people generally like Star Wars.
Yeah, so the thing is, people fall in the trap when you start collecting, especially. You see the cover of issue 1 and you think, oh, yeah, I'm going to buy myself issue 1. And sometimes you end up overpaying because you don't know it's a second print or sometimes even a third print. And the poster here in front of you is just really the logo on the top left corner of each of those prints of Star Wars to show you how they differentiate from each other. So the one might have the middle one, see, it's got the word reprint there. But when you look at the book, that is about maybe a centimeter sized. So it's not obvious. It's not like in your face. So if you see it in a bundle and you're placing bids on eBay and the corner sticking out, at least you know what to look for. The third one with a 35 cents diamond is actually a second print that was purely distributed in like Walmart packs and different packs in the US. So it's technically a second and a half print, or something like that. There is actually a 35 cents first print that was purely for the West Coast distribution, but they're kind of a phantom at the moment. Like if you find one of them, they're 10 times, 15 times the price of the actual first print because of the ratios.
And I guess they thought it was a bit more extra freight, so they charged a bit more.
Yeah. So it went for about 4.5, 5 months where distributors, especially Marvel, said, if we're shipping from New York to LA, we need to incorporate those costs into the freight cost into the price. Otherwise, we're making a loss. And they had a low distribution on the West Coast, which means the ratio shipped with a 35 cent variant at that point in time was way lower. And as a result, there's much less of them. And so they demand a much higher price.
Yeah, of course.
It's a very, very, very interesting concept. But then people mistake the second print that's got that diamond 35 for that first print variant, and you overpay for it because it should technically be a second print, so it's half the price.
Everyone knows I love a lame comic, and there's so many to choose from, so I'm never bored. But tell us a little bit. He looks a bit lame, the Raven. Or is he great?
The Raven. Do you know, it's one of those. I think it was great for its time. And if somebody had to pick that up and reimagine it a little bit, it'll probably go a long way. I think I saw one of the Australian artists redraw them in a modern style, and they added a little bit of attitude around it. But at the moment, I mean, the comic you have in front of you, number 2, was published early 60s. Paul Whelan was the creator of it, and it was massive back then. It was side by side with things like the Phantom, right? But it kind of just fell by the wayside because it lacked international distribution, and it kind of slowly died off. Ironically, I bought the number 2 that you have in front of you in the US, and I brought it back into Australia. So Australia's got one more copy as a result. But yeah, that's an Australian comic, born and bred. It came out. It was huge. the creator Paul Willenen was one of the legends of the Silver Age in Australian comics. So for me, it's hopefully bringing this to the forefront. Hopefully somebody might pick it up and say, hey, let's reimagine it, let's incorporate it into a story or into a current comic world where he might become relevant again. There's a few of them, man. There's The Raven is one of them. There's what's the other one I'm always after? Catman. There's a few Australian ones too that's really, really good.
Catman sounds interesting.
Yeah, you can see there's a heavy Thor Jane Foster presence in my post, because just leading up to the movies and the countdown and celebrating her picking up the hammer. That's always fun.
Do you think you know what the next Thor movie is going to be like? Or do you actually know?
Purely based. No, I don't. But purely based on the 2-minute trailer, they've got it sold, right? They're hitting all the marks with the nostalgia of Chris Hemsworth. It's a bit of a comeback story for him, bringing back his form, but then also his outfit pays a lot of tribute to Thunderstrike from the 90s. I don't know if you read those corny extreme Thor
I did, yeah.
With his denim jacket and ponytail and that type of stuff. And then also obviously with Jane Foster picking up the hammer, which is a tribute to the Jason Aaron runs. And the promise of what's to come, even if it's temporary, she might get 1 or 2 movies with her as a starring role, which is really, really good.
It is good. The more diversity, the better. You can't get more diverse than a big green guy, though.
True that. That was actually in a book called Hulk Grand Design. I happen to have it next to me. So it's one of the pages in this book that I've got in front of you.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's kind of summary of the first 200 issues of Hulk retold in a very pulpy style. And then they've got pages like that where somebody just redrew Hulk 181 by hand. It's a really cool book. And the design aspects and how they played around with the characters and stuff is really well told too.
Very, very cool indeed. Well, nearly 1,500 people there are enjoying your stuff, Nev.
Yeah,
so
man.
That's no mean feat.
Yeah, I tell you one thing with Instagram, and I don't know if it's perception, but the more followers you have, the easier you get followers. It's the irony of it. I worked a lot harder when I had 50 followers than I do when I've got 1,500 followers, to be honest with you, because I think people have that perception of, you know what you talk about because you got more followers. Although I won't say I've learned a lot over the past 3 or 4 years to justify that, but I'll take it.
Yeah, well, look, you're my main guy for what's happening. I mean, I can't keep up with you, but I read all your posts, and it gives me a general gist of what's going on in the comic book world. And it's fantastic for me.
Yeah,
and everyone should follow Nev if you've got any interest in keeping up with comic books or just pop culture, really. Because comic books are a lot of pop culture these days.
Yeah, true that, eh? And I do try, like if you look at the posts, I would say 80% would be comics or 75% comics, and the rest would be toys or skateboards or action figures or arcade games or retro stuff, which I really enjoy. I think it's probably my curse that I get influenced by things around me. So I do tend to collect a lot more than I should. And I think that my Instagram is fairly reflective of that.
Yeah, it's great. Now, what do you think about this? I know you're going to have some sort of take. Let's share this. Bam. This guy. And also this guy.
Yeah. I tell you, his acting in the show so far has been amazing.
Yeah.
I've seen a little bit of criticism because people wanted him to be Moon Knight from episode 1 and just be this crazy psycho character. But I think, the way they're telling it makes it really appealing to people who don't even know what comics are about or what his story is about. The show doesn't feel like they're telling a comic story. It feels like a supernatural story that might end up with a guy in an outfit that fights evil. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
The way they play him off against himself is really well done. And even 5 episodes in now, you still have those WTF moments where it's like, now I get it. Now I get it. Because the writing is so integrated. I was telling Alana, my partner, that one of the episodes was so so detailed and so much information, so many things happen. It felt like you were watching a whole movie because it's just so full on. You can't play with your phone and not pay attention. You have to pay attention, otherwise you miss stuff. And that's what I really like about it.
Oscar's not phoning it in, that's for sure.
Absolutely, man. I think, if there's awards to be had, if they ever start taking comic genre seriously or give him a category for awards or something like that, in terms of acting, he's setting a really high bar there. Hey, I tell you that.
I
He's really
actually got
taking those
very
roles seriously.
judgmental through the week because I said to someone, I said, "Are you watching Moon Knight?" And they said, "Oh, no, I tried, but I didn't like it." I said, "You are wrong," which is you should never say to someone.
Yeah.
You should never say that to anybody.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I can tell you that with Disney, what I have to give them props for is they've had 5 Marvel shows out now, and how they diversify not just the character base, but the way they tell the stories and the way the look and the feel of the characters and the environments that they live in is so different. If you compare WandaVision to the more traditional Falcon and Winter Soldier to Moon Knight, it feels like a different genre. It might be a Marvel thing, but it feels like a totally different thing. And I think they do it really well. They hedge their bets and diversify to the point where even if you don't like everything, you'll find something you like. And I think that's what they're trying to do. They don't want the same person to like everything. They want everybody to like something. And I think they're doing that right.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of money thrown at it. When I was watching the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I thought, gee, this is really not for everybody, this particular title, but so much money was spent. And I was just like, hats off, Disney. You guys are really.
Which one's been your favorite?
I would have to say Moon Knight, followed by WandaVision of the TV fare. Of the TV Marvel stuff. Yeah. My wife really liked Agent Carter, and nothing really to do with her being female or anything like that. It was just more up her alley. And I think
even the What If stuff, right? How good was that? Talking about Agent Carter, the What If, the animated series with the zombies and everything else, they really did so well with that.
I've watched a couple, and they've really got their finger on the comic book pulse. They're doing great stuff, and it's hard to imagine them putting a foot wrong right at the moment. I guess Inhumans wasn't all that great, but they only had Inhumans to work with. They only had the Inhumans property to work with, and if they want to throw $100 million at that, go wild.
And I think Inhumans also suffered of the fact that it wasn't produced by Marvel, right? It was just a licensed show.
Yeah, sure.
I think if Inhumans had to come via Disney as a Marvel brand, it'll have a different perception. And maybe I think with Miss Marvel, there's ties to the Inhumans, so maybe they will use that as a opportunity to reintroduce or reboot the Inhumans.
Yes, fantastic. Well, you said you brought in a few items for us, so let's have a little look.
Yeah, no, look, and I touched on it when you looked at the Instagram, and I think there's been a lot of buzz around record sales of comics recently, and they had the big sales for the American stuff, but recently an announcement to the CGC, they said they're going to make official a kind of focus around foreign prints. And I don't know if you saw that, but they had a massive news release, and the news release actually had linked to how you're going to submit the books, how they're going to consider and grade it, how they verify where it's from, what the content is, because of the fact that Australia is not the only country that's really dodgy in how they compiled their reprints back in the 60s and 70s, where they might have crossed over publishers and all that type of stuff. So they've got a lot of work ahead of them. But the fact that CGC is about officially taking it on and going to certify those books, really actually what it did is it sparked an interest in that, because a lot of people who weren't originally collecting reprints now are like, oh, what are these books that CGC is looking for? And then Key Collector Comics started putting it in their app. And a lot of the websites started focusing on around the what ifs of what's going to be included. And for some reason, especially the Americans are drawn to the Australian reprints, and not not any of them, not all of them, but they're focusing around the Horwitz ones, the Newtons ones, and the Jaffa ones at the moment. And when we go back to saying record sales, we're seeing literally record sales every week. Every Sunday night, Australian time, when some auction finishes, there's a new record set. Fantastic Four #1 Newton print with a poster was 1,400. X-Men 1 with a poster was 1,300. You know, it's money that's probably quadruple what it was a year ago. So I thought, you know, just for the sake of the audience and showing you guys what it's like, I thought I'd show off some of the covers and what they look like. And what I do like about these Newtons, right? I'll send you some photos too if you want. What I do like about them is they had a much simpler color template. So what they had to do was recolor a lot of the characters so that they stand out and don't not blend into the background and stuff like that. But the consequence of having a restricted color palette was the fact that everything's bold and everything's in your face. And I think that's what makes the covers so appealing. So if you look at the Avengers, it's really a souped up version of the original cover with a bit of branding at the top.
It's better.
So X-Men.
Better, if anything.
Yeah. So look at the color of Beastman, right?
Yes.
he used to be just a dude with an outfit, and they made him oh, well, Beastman's supposed to be a beast, so we're going to make him like dark green. The Magneto's helmet's yellow and things like that. So this is actually X-Men 1, and because they had a backup story of Avengers at the back, they called it X-Men and the Avengers, but it actually literally X-Men #1. Yeah. So a lot of that, the anomalies of them is just really, really cool. Like you see Ant-Man, they made him red. Doctor Strange, his face purple. And all these books, just I think because they're such a contrast to what the Americans are used to, they're just enjoying it. One of these, this is the Jaffa X-Men #1.
Yeah.
So this weekend, the first time a complete copy like this went on sale, it ended up for like $835.
Wow!
And it's the first time it sold over a few hundred. But yeah, so talking about Jaffa, man, like #1, they used #2's cover. This is issue 1, and they used #2's cover. And back then, I don't know if you remember the early Daredevil, he used to be yellow.
Yeah.
So they just recolored him and said, well, we're going to make him red because people know he's red. Same with #2. This is the first Purple Man. So this used to be his yellow outfit that they recolored. Ghost Rider, they used issue 2 for #1's cover. So a lot of oddities snuck into the comics. I think Submariner #1, the background used to be blue, so they made it green, but they also tilted him. I think it's like a mirror image of the original cover for some reason.
Wow, it's odd,
yeah, man.
it?
So a lot of them go through all these, you know, random transformations prior to publication for no real reason, and I think because of that uniqueness that come with it, people found some interest in it, and the Australian comics are kind of the belle of the ball at the moment. If you look at the Hulk, it looks like it's filled in with color markers. It's like the day they printed it, they're like, oh well, I don't know why, because back then the Hulk was grey on cover #1, so they actually made him green with markers before they printed it. Look at that. So there's amazing. A lot of things like that just, it just screams uniqueness, and because everything's so bright in your face, it's got such a level of appeal that's hopefully sustainable, because the more Australian comics get profiled, the more likely people will start picking up Australian created books, right? If you look at the Horwitz generation of Australian books, that's probably 10 years prior to this. I've got a Stan Lee signed Avengers 1, but the cover was by an Australian New Zealand creator. So they literally redrew the entire cover for Avengers #1 in 1965, 2 years after the original came out. And Stanley, I was lucky enough to have Stanley signed copy of one of them. I doubt there's more than one in the world.
Wowzers, trousers, that is tremendous. Yeah, no, I've been seeing those posts more and more often. And I had a few Murray the Cats, which are good. That's got to be the worst Australian publisher, isn't it? Surely. I mean, so it wasn't any better than newsprint, really. Yeah,
the Murray ones. Oh, look, none of them are. And that's what makes it so difficult. And, you know, the early Newtons all came out with posters. So of the books I showed you, I showed you about 12 now. I would say 4 of them have posters in, because kids would rip it out and stick against the wall, and with sun fade in 3 weeks, there'll be nothing left of them because the paper's so crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that because I used to be a Kiss fan. As lots of kids of my age was, and they'd have posters of Kiss in the newspaper, and I think beauty free posters last about 6 weeks on the wall.
Yeah.
Before it was
They
more or
don't
less
go
a
long.
black and white. But anyway.
Yeah. And I tell you, I think both all of them really, Horwitz, Newton, Jaffa, they were all like lowest cost to print. They wanted to print 20,000 cheapest possible books, and that's what they did. And I think that's why finding something that's a respectable grade is so appealing, especially if it's got posts and everything in.
He like exploiting. I made up a word. Exploiting intellectual properties. It's not a new thing. It's quite an old thing.
I could tell you now, very likely not all of these guys had consent or license to print these books.
Certainly not.
Some are smuggled in printing plates. They recreated to make it look like it's not the American ones in some cases in the early 60s. There's a lot of dodgy stuff that happened to circumvent having to pay the big man in America some money.
Absolutely. Well, look, anyway, we better talk about hard, fast money or fast, hard money, or either way you will like it. What's your big tips for the next few months until we chat again? What should people be getting into?
There seems to be a lot of interest in books that are already hot at the moment. And it's tough because of the fact that people are willing to pay overs to try and secure a copy of something that's probably not that valuable. And I always find that troubling because, one, you'll get collector's fatigue, but two, also you'll have an empty bank account and be demotivated. And they're mostly the modern stuff, and it's driven off the fact that I think when you had my Instagram open, I created a meme over there about there's so many people on Instagram that think that they receive attention and followers by creating a hot 10 list. So what they do is they fall in the trap of doing it 3 times a week, and every time they want to bring up new books to try and generate new followers. But the fact is, you go back to 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks ago when they created their hot book lists, and all those books have already fallen by the wayside because it was so highly speculative that it's probably hot for 4 days, and if you don't flip it right away, you're going to lose $20 or $30.
Yeah, didn't we do all this in the 90s? Right? We did all this in the 90s, right?
It's happening all over again, man. It's happening all over again. And it's almost like guys who've been through that cycle, you're a little bit more psychic and you can see it coming. You can see the collecting fatigue. You can see little people just selling collections, and most of it would be between 1 and 8 years old. I see a lot of slabbed books that are worth under $100 that's going on sale, and nobody wants to buy it because everybody thought having a book slabbed and it's a 9.8 is going to be worth something. So there's a lot more warnings in the industry of wanting to make a quick buck. My and going back to our previous conversation, is my point around that is always like, I'd rather go with a tried and trusted stuff where I know that it's got a pathway to success, whether it's 1 or 3 or 5 or 10 years from now. If the character is going to be relevant and have a level of appeal in 10 years from now, then it's a safe bet. And whether it's via TVs or movies or comics, it doesn't really matter. But if you can get that harmony of appeal that's longer lasting than a 3-day flip, then you're setting yourself up for success, right? If you want to quickly flip a book for $50, you might be in trouble. For me, if it's critically appreciated for its writing and art or groundbreaking in some way, they seem to be good. They are.
We think about Why the Last Man. We think about Department of Truth, stuff like that.
Yeah, and even modern stuff like Department of Truth, Something's Killing the Children, Saga just came back after an hiatus, right? and you'll collect that because it's really good books and you're going to enjoy it. And they're going to, if it happens to be worth a lot of money, that's amazing. And it seems that if you get the right creative team on something like those titles, and they sustain their involvement in the book over a longer term than 3 or 4 months, then you've definitely got something there. But don't retrospectively try and buy it as it comes out. For me to say what's a great book to invest in or to track down, I would say something like the first appearance of Nova that's graded 9 and above. It'll still be worth a few $100. It'll be worth a few $100 at the moment, but it'll be a few $1,000 down the track because the creators are still around. You can still get it signed and pressed and graded and all that type of stuff. And it's just one of those books, man.
Well, the new version of Zoom wants to punt us off now. So I probably shouldn't have upgraded, but we've got 5 minutes. We've got 5 minutes, which is a lot of chatting. I read something about the Sandman TV show or movie, definitely happening, even from the mouth of Neil Gaiman. Do you know anything about it?
I've seen a 30-second trailer.
Okay.
Like a teaser, and it looked really good. So it's definitely happening.
Were you ever a fan? It's pretty out there, Sandman.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was, thanks to a really good friend of mine, Willy Engelbrecht, back in South Africa. He was a Vertigo collector. Back when I was reading Justice League, he was reading Hellblazer, Constantine, Preacher, Sandman, Books of Magic, all those books. So I'd buy my stash, he'd buy his stash, we'd read it and swap. So I got to know all those stories without having to buy it, and I got to read and enjoy it without having to buy it. And in many cases, I shamed him out of it to sell it to me if I really liked it, because he was a reader, he wasn't a collector. So for him, it was all right. Absolutely, I loved it, and I think if they can take that and write it well, and it's endorsed by Neil Gaiman, you've got a whole universe to play with. Absolutely, I think it'll be amazing.
Good writer, Neil.
Yeah. What
Still
about
with us, Neil Adams?
Yeah.
Not so much. What about anymore?
Yeah. So also the Crow. Like, did you hear that it's also relaunching as a franchise?
Sure. Why not? I mean, I don't know who asked for that, but sure.
Come on! I'm one of the biggest Crow fans on the planet, so I'm probably one of the guys who were teary faced when that happened, because I know they went a little bit off the rails at the end of the 90s because they had 4 movies and a TV show and everything. But James O'Barr, the creator, I've met him a number of times, and every time I talk to him about it, he's like, over his dead body, will there be another Crow movie or TV show unless he's involved and approves of it? And even last time I saw him, 2021, he was at Supernova. I had a chat to him, and he still said, you know what? There might be 10 pictures on my table, on my desk at work. I'll say no thanks to all of them unless I find something. So until I say there's another one, there's not going to be another one. And I love the fact that he's doing that. You get the opposite, where people just say yes to everything because they want the money. He says yes to the right thing because he wants the property and the relevance of the character to endure. So when the news came out that there's going to be another movie made, and it's going to be the actor, what's his name? Perfect guy for it. I lost his name now. But perfect guy to play the Crow.
Insert name here.
Yeah, insert name. Yeah. Play some music. Show the name. It's that Viking guy, man. He's got this weird surname. Anyway, perfect guy for the role, and I think the fact that James O'Barr's approved of it, approved the script, and is attached to it to a degree is great. And also, subsequently, the comics probably doubled in price in a month.
Yeah. Well, let's have more Crow then, if it's going to be good. If it's going to be good, why not? Let's have it.
That's what you need, right? Good content, not just all content.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Well, mate, we'll say goodbye, and we'll remind everyone that Neville Tiberius Howard is the man to go to if you just want a great overall view of what's going on with comics, and also if you want an in-depth view. Right,
yeah,
Nev?
and if you like spending money on things you're passionate about, I'm more than happy to inspire you.
Yeah, you certainly inspire me, mate. Thanks very much.
Thanks for the chat, man. Always good seeing you. Have a great one.